I am Daniella Okangba, a double first-class lawyer. I graduated from Babcock University with a first-class honors and also was called to bar in July 10, 2025 from the Nigerian Law School, Lagos campus with a first-class honors. I graduated as a third overall best graduating student, having won the awards of Best Student in Civil Litigation, Best Female Student in Civil Litigation, overall Best Student in Civil Litigation, Director General's Prize for the first class student, as well as an award for third overall best graduating student. I was motivated to study law from a very funny story. I attended a military secondary school where I had to go through the whole military system. And one thing I knew for sure was the little to no right of say and inequalities that I saw while at secondary school. Number one, that was one of the things that motivated me. There were several incidences that happened and people would keep quiet, but I, being the child that would always speak, I would stand up and address whatever issue was going on, and everyone just knew that this girl was going to become a lawyer. I think that was where my first inspiration was gotten from. But alongside, I was someone who always liked talking, and everybody just said, you know what? Law is it for you. So I think that was where my inspiration was gotten from to study law. So I would focus on the word before resumption. Before resumption at Nigerian Law School, to be honest, I did nothing. I just slept, woke up, rested, had fun, enjoyed myself. I knew that there was going to be a lot coming ahead. And the best thing to do when you have so much to do is to rest first, so that you'll be energized for what is ahead. So mentally, physically, emotionally, I rested, I went out, I traveled, I had fun. Also on the side, I tried to do some graduate interns with some of the firms, one of which I work in right now. And that basically was what I prepared. But apart from that, we were meant to resume November 2023, but then it was moved to January. So when January was fast approaching, reality had dawned on me that this was it. And what I did was first was spiritually, I began to ask God, what was the plan? What were we going to do in law school? Secondly was, I decided to start looking out for, okay, what are everybody doing? What can I do? But academically, I will be honest, I didn't pick a book content at law school. Before I went to law school, the assumption I had was that law school was very demanding and very scary. I don't think it was an assumption. I think it's fact that it is actually demanding. Scary, it depends on what's scary to you, but it was very demanding. So I think another shocker for me was that you would really not have time for other things if you want to give it your best. I always knew this, but practically it didn't make sense until I saw it play out. So for me, I think there were no assumptions, there were facts. Law school was very demanding, and when I got in, I just came with, maybe because I had rested enough, I came with the mindset that, okay, we're ready to do this, we are prepared for this a long time, so let's just do it and be going. My daily life in law school was a very, very funny one when I think back to it. I would start from typical 12 a.m. So 12 a.m. to 6:30, I'm a ninth reader. So 12 a.m. to 6:30, I'm reading. I sleep by 6:30, depending on how I'm able to cover on time. 6:30, I sleep. Wake up by 8:30, prepare for class, and I'm in class by 9. Luckily, I was in Lagos campus, so the journey wasn't so much. So I'm in class by 9. We have classes till 3, sometimes 3:30, and then I go back to the hostel, have an hour sleep, have my lunch, and then I'm a group leader. So as a group leader, I had to have group meetings. So by 5 p.m., there was group meetings. We go out for group meetings, and sometimes we finish 6, on worst case scenario, which was most of the times 7. And then I'm back into the hostel, have my dinner between 7 to 8, relax, check social media, check what's going on. And then I go from 8 to 11, reading the course that we learned that day. And when I'm done with that, I had a group of friends where we read together, and we come by 11. We do revision over the topic that was taught that day. And when we're done with that, we do 10 to 15 minutes of MCQ. And after that, another 12 a.m. comes, and I'm reading again. So that was my daily life. But at the end of the day, I did that Monday to Thursdays, or rather Sundays to Thursdays. Friday evenings was Sabbath for me. So I don't read, I don't do anything academic. I just spend time with God, pray, sleep. That was a moment for me to refresh myself from all that I'd gone through that week. And then Saturday evening, we go again with the reading timetable. So that was my basic daily time. For my friends, we had, like I said, we had a group of friends where we read together as study group. Would I recommend a study group to other people? Yes and no. I think it depends on who you are, and it depends on what works for you. And I think that people think when we say study group, you have to sit down with these people and read together. No. My study group were only for discussions. So you had read what you wanted to read, and we are coming to ask questions. Okay, what was this? What was this? And that is for you to either listen for what you did not pick up in class, or also learn what you did not know. So it was just for interactions, to check whether you knew what you had done or what you had read. But yes, I would recommend it, but I would say it's subject to what works for you and how you read. They impacted my experience a whole lot. I can't even imagine law school without friends. So when we got to law school, my roommates were all people I went to Bangkok with. So it was very easy for us to bond since we were in uni together. They helped me to be able to stay on my feet. Some of them knew my goals, and I was accountable to some of them. For family, I can't count the number of times my family came to visit. And in law school, I'm going to tell you for a fact, anybody that comes to visit you and comes with their hands full is a blessing. So I had that a lot. I had people coming to visit. Then for my mentors, they kept on shouting the go in my ear so that I don't get carried away by what I was doing. And even lecturers, I remember our lecturers visited on certain occasions. So for me, I think the whole support system was what made me grounded and firm, because I knew that there were people rooting for me. When it comes to resources, I don't want to say this, but I think like law school, there's no point buying textbooks. That's my own opinion, because I bought a lot of textbooks that I didn't even write my name on them. That was how it was. For resources, I used materials that were already compiled from previous law school students. So I used Mayowa because for me it was very straightforward, simplified, not too much stories. But majorly was that I wrote in class. So I was that student who would listen for everything they are saying and take note of it down. And that was for me my foundational notes. Then Mayowa was used to, okay, is there something that I could not get in class, or something that it's not in my notes but it's in Mayowa and people know about it. So that was just a way of, reinforcing the notes I had taken down. But those were my resources. Then RPC, I used, the only textbook here was Ethics, which was Obi Okolu. I don't think I got the name well, but that was the only textbook I made use of. Those were the resources. I think for me it was my notes, and that helped me to stay grounded and not be carried away by so many materials around. How did I approach exam preparation, MCQs and Bar Finals? The truth is, I'd already shared my reading timetable, but when it came to MCQs, I really think that the fact that I and my friends were already doing the whole MCQ stuff from the beginning kind of made me very good with time. Because I'm very sure anyone in law school already has the compendium of a document that has MCQs based on topics. So we always had that and would time ourselves, and it was good to go. But towards exam time, I would say this, I had so many study groups, if that's what we'll call it. I had different friends, and I had different groups of friends, and each of them had things that I did with them. So I could do MCQ with this friend, this group of friends, this group of friends, this group of friends, this group of friends. And by the time I was done, I had gone over my MCQs from 2016 to last year, like 5 to 6 times. So that, I think that helped me cover ground. Now, when it came to preparing for Bar Finals, I would not disregard the role that reading comes into play. But I think towards the bar finals, you begin to find out that it's more than how much you know. It's more about how you are able to write it. So in preparing for bar finals, I started learning how to answer questions. I remember timing myself 2 hours, 30 minutes to answer some yes questions in different courses across board. I would give it to someone to review. What do you think? How could I have done this better? If you were marking, what would you score me? And I gave it to people that I knew that if they are scoring me, they are very stingy with their marks. So that helped me to gauge what I was missing out on. But this only came in because I had read. During my externship, I had read. I think it's now I understand why it's no surprise that I was the best student in civil litigation, because that was the only course I know I came out of, and I was like, law school thought they planned something big. They didn't know that I was up to the task. But apart from that, I think that for other courses, there were always that question. I remember in criminal, I made a mistake. I remember I knew one question more than the other, and then I just felt led to answer the one I didn't know well. And I don't know why till today. But they were just those times that you would come out and you're like, law school try, shall. But I'm not going to lie. I think for most of them, I came out knowing that I had given it my best shot. And I think that that's the thing for law school, where you are able to get to a point that you agree with yourself that even if I went back, there's nothing better I could have done. I've given it my best shot. So was there anything I did in the exam that was different within the exam hall? I think the way I wrote. I tell people, like I said earlier, it's not about how much you know, it's how well you write. I think for me, I ensured I wrote it very well. I ensured I gave it the spacing, made sure my answers were clearly written, made my handwriting very eligible. But apart from that, it goes back to the content, and I'm grateful for wherever I am now. The externship period is the recovery stage where you are able to recover from whatever you've lost. So for me, starting out the externship, the first thing I did when I got back was to take 1 week break. I'd stayed in law school, I'd read some things, and I just needed that break. I think I'm someone that thrives on resting, maybe. But after the 1 week break, I started reading, and I took my courses one by one, as against taking them weekly like I did in school. So if I started with civil litigation, I finished civil litigation, then went to criminal. Now, what I did was, while reading, I had a jotter for each course, where I summarized into key points what the topic was about. Now, I'd read in school, and it was like a refresher, but this time I tried to cram my cases, I tried to lay them out and set them in alignment. So when I was done studying for each course, I thereafter just used the jotter to read the course again. So now that I'm reading with the jotter, I didn't have to maybe start referring to notes and all the mayowas and badmos. I just stuck strictly to what I had in my jotter. So my jotter was so comprehensive that once I see a keyword, I can remember what that question was about, answer it, and where I was still not very confident or strong on, I will go back to my notes. So that allowed me cover it substantively. Now, aside that, when it came to my cases and my rules, what I started doing from class was I divided my cases and sections and rules into a jotter. So what I did was, for example, civil litigation, I divided my rules, and I had High Court of Lagos and Abuja, and I would write out each topic. I would write out the rules beside them, what they spoke to. So because I had this in a summarized format, all I needed to do was, even days that I was going out, I would just take that jotter and I would be reading. I would attend events and I would be reading, and they'll be like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, I'm just trying to memorize it. So I think that made it easy for me to get familiar with this, the sections, the cases, the rules. But during externship, that was what I did. I was also reading. I think I didn't change my reading pattern. The only difference was the time I would spend in court was what I was using for my classes, and the time I would have spent in class was also for my court attachments, where I was able to work as well as read. So that was basically my externship goal. Nevertheless, as much as I read so much during externship, I remember my father used to joke that if I told someone to wake me up by 12 and they woke me up 12:01, I would scream the roof up. But apart from that, I think another thing I did was to rest enough. So there were weeks in between my reading. I remember one week I just went out, traveled to another state, and just had fun and did other things. But essentially, I was focused on the goal and I gave it my best. What I did during the final bar preparation was, what I did more was, I covered grounds with topics that I wasn't familiar with. So by the time we came back for externships, there were some topics we had not yet been taught. I met people to explain them. During externship, got people to teach them to me so that I at least have an idea. But when I came back, I focused more on them. Now, what did I do more? One, I did more discussions. I understood that I had gotten to a point where I was confident with what I had read. Now, the question was, can I bring them out when I'm asked? So I started engaging with a lot of people. I had a friend where we did drafts together. I had people who would, randomly see me and say, Daniella, what's this? Daniella, what's this? And it just became a fun way of talking to people. So I didn't make it so big in my eyes that I'm writing bar final. I think I tried to make it very creative and fun by asking questions and interacting. What more did I do? I went over all that I had read. With my summarized jotter, I was able to pinpoint things to focus on, and that made it better for me. What did I stop doing? Simple. I stopped reading so many textbooks because at that point in time, my brain is trying to focus on what I know and even adapt or create space for the more that is coming. So reading top textbooks and a lot of content that would be hard for me to grasp at that point in time, I tried to avoid it. So I started streamlining what I was reading to things that really mattered, and I focused more on retention of what I knew as well as comprehension of what I did not know. The most difficult part of law school for me would be, there are different things. So the first one for me would be dealing with fears. I didn't say this earlier, but February 14, 2024, we were in school and the result of previous set had come out. And people had looked up to, people who had gotten first class in their undergrad had gotten 2-1. And that for me was no way. It felt like, Daniella, was the guarantee that you who got first class, you was BGS, would be able to repeat it again. And dealing with that fear, I think that was the first time I allowed fear creeping, and the last. I had to remind myself that my case was different. And just because they had that story doesn't mean I would have same. So that was one of the most important pressures I felt emotionally. Now, another difficult thing for me in law school was combining everything. So I was a group leader of group 3, and it was a lot. I think at the beginning, I found it hard to come to terms with the fact that I was a group leader because I didn't want to. I don't know why I came out, but I didn't want to. But when I adjusted to it, I think another pressure that I faced, or what was difficult, was the fact that every time I could count on my fingers at least 5 or 7 times that I wasn't called in class. Every class was group 3 leader, answer a question. And for me, that was very difficult because at first it was difficult. I think at time I got used to it. But why it was difficult? Because you don't know the question they are throwing at you. And second, it was because it became a thing where I felt that the questions they were going to throw at you were the most challenging ones that nobody knew. So it was difficult every class knowing that you would just be called and you don't know what you're going to answer. But I'm grateful that because those things were what kept me on my toes. So in essence, I think the most difficult part of law school is what gave me the stability to thrive through it. I think for me, that would have to be people. I'm a people person, so I would always surround myself with people. But I think those were the people were the most important. And when I mean people, I mean my friends, I mean my family, I mean my mentors. Those were the people that kept me going. But also, I think I hold one scripture very dear, Hebrews 12, verse 2. It says, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him. I don't know, but I think I was very, very determined to be the BGS. Like, I was so determined to get this degree and get it, because for me it was confirmation of all that I'd done. So on those tough days, I imagined, I have a vivid image of myself receiving awards on the stage. I had a vivid image of the hall so filled up with people clapping. So even on days that I wasn't so sure, those were what kept me. But also was that I had watched a lot of people's graduation ceremonies, the call to bar ceremony, and I also had listened to Young VIP TV, actually. I remember there was a day I was very sad, and I just picked it up, and I watched like 5 episodes in one. And those were the days that kept me going, and those were the days that gave me, you can do this. These people have done it. It's just a matter of time. So on my 12 days, I remembered the goal, and I put my focus on it because there was no turning back. It was either I was getting it or I was getting it. I would say pressure was mostly for myself. Like they say in law school is not hard. Now you define first class. So pressure was mostly for myself. How did I handle it? Simple. I focused on the goal. I don't think I'm someone that is, or maybe I work more under pressure. I mean, my mentors say I do. But I don't think I was really pressured because maybe I was. But because when I think back at it now, I knew I'd prepared my mind for what law school was demanding, kind of. So I'd counted the cost. And so when they were throwing it at me, I just saw them as bricks, words that would turn into step to what I'm getting at. But when it came to other things that, people are expecting you to do this, people are expecting you to do that, I kept my focus on the goal. I remember the only pressure I got from people was one time in class, civil litigation again. They had called people outside and I wasn't called as people who had done well. And everybody kept on asking, how far, Daniella, what happened? How did this go? But I think for me, what helped me that moment was, this was not the end. The end was still ahead. And so even if I didn't make it this one, my mind was still on the goal. So how I handled pressure was to focus on the goal. When you say the word relationship, there are so many relationships. So I don't know if it's in the sense you are thinking of it, but if it's in the sense you're thinking of it, no, I was not in an official relationship. I had a lot of friends, both female and male. My family was my support system, and my friends and mentors. So I had a particular friend who he helped me. We were both in law school, so we were G's through it all, and we studied together towards exam and prepared for it. But officially, I was not in any relationship. With a lot I had to do, how did I care for my mental health? I don't know if this would be a good advice, but I think that you become overwhelmed in law school when you actually start thinking of what you're going through. So I would say I don't know if it's a good advice, because when I eventually started thinking about law school in retrospect, I started feeling like overwhelmed. But while in law school, I tried not to focus on, this is the mountain I have to climb. How high is it? I just focused on doing each day what came to me. So, okay, we have this to do. I run around, do all I need to do. Knowing full well that 12 a.m., everybody will go and sleep. And it means that I have myself back to myself. So that helped me not to think about it so that it doesn't look overwhelming. Also was that I rested enough. I mean, as much as my timetable during the week was a lot, that Friday I would take out time, rest. And some days when I feel like, today let's just do a cheat day, I watch movie because I love movies. So I watch a movie, I spend time with God, spend time with my friends, and we went out a lot. Not so much, but at least intervally, we were always on the move. So I think that brought a bit of a balance to the whole thing. I don't think there was a particular thing, but if I'm going to give anything to you who is preparing for the Nigerian Law School or who is already in Nigerian Law School, it will be this. Prepare yourself the best way you know you can. And that means all round, mentally, emotionally, academically, physically. And I'm saying prepare yourself because I can't tell you how to prepare. Law school cannot be explained. I could try, but it's still an experience. So even if I give you all the advice in this world, you have your own experience to live. But if I was to balance it out, I would say one thing. Your case is different. And you write your story. So write it the best way you want it to be. And lastly, it will be this. In all things that you do, rest. I mean, the dead don't write bad parts. So as you give it your best shot, remember that you're a woman, and as a woman, you also have to rest. I will start from my reaction. So fortunately and unfortunately, during that period when results had come out, I was preparing for another exam. I had an exam in the next 3 days. So my usual routine, I was about to sleep to wake up by 12 or 2 to read through the night as against the next day. I heard all the rumors, law school results is about coming out. And forgive me because they had busted our bubbles many times. I wasn't so sure that they won't do the same. But when I woke up, I woke up and my mom was like, your results, have you checked it? And the speed at which I jumped out of my bed. And I checked it and it was a first class. Was I expecting it? Honestly, yes. But I still pranked my mom with it, sha. But yes, I was expecting it. I had given it my best. I had given it so much work. I don't want to say this so that it doesn't sound like pride. But for me in law school, I think my focus had moved from getting a first class to being BGS. Why? Because I'd gotten to a point where I knew that getting even first class was sure because of the effort and hard work I'd put in. So now when I saw the BGS status thing, because it had trended on Twitter, I screamed the house down. That was my first reaction. Someone had told me and I was like, you are lying. And the person was like, I'm not lying. And then she sent the whole folder. And I said, is this from law school? That was my first question. Is this from... Don't raise my bubbles so that it's not going to burst. Well, when I said the first reaction was I screamed so loud that everybody ran out thinking that something bad had happened. And I couldn't talk. I just showed them and everyone was happy. They didn't understand, but they just saw number 3. So I was really excited. And I mean, typical Nigerian mother, we entered into praise mode. So that was my reaction when I saw my results. Was I expecting it? Yes. Was I expecting to be BGS? I had released my faith. I had prayed it through. January fasting and prayer, I had given it, God, if there's one thing you do this year, this must be it. So I was so sure about it, I had released my faith for it. But I don't think that still beats the surprise you get when you actually see it. Because like everyone would tell you, you could do everything for law school and something would just go wrong. But seeing that you did everything and it came out the way you expected, or even much more, is a different kind of feeling. I would break this question into 4 answers. Simply God, zeal, focus, and people. God, because, I mean, in the end of it all, the Bible verse says, no one gets anything except heaven gives it. That's no one can succeed without heaven's help. I think that's John 3 something. And zeal, because my mind was set on it. I feel like that's just it for me. Like, before I got into law school, that was the only thing I understood. So when people were even saying they were struggling, they were this, maybe because of how hungry I was for it, I didn't see them as struggle. I just saw them as someone feeding me with what I would be satisfied with. And focus, because on good and bad days, my eyes were set on the goal. I knew the joy that was set before me. Then people, because they were the shoulders of the giants I stood on to overcome. And these people, friends, family, mentors, all of them, they were the ones that, even people I met in law school, they were the ones that kept me. So That has to be my big difference.